Okay, so what a question like this is going to involve, we have 3 different criteria to actually work with. First of all, we have the cone, we have the cylinder, there are 2 shapes, and then also, which is key, we have the ground as well. So the sphere we're going to draw has to be touching all 3 of those. Now the way to go about this is just concentrate on 2 of them at a time. So the first one I'm going to concentrate on is that I'm going to draw a sphere that's in contact with the cylinder and the ground. Okay, I'm just concentrating on that. Now I know the size of my sphere. It's a sphere of 20. So I can set my compass to that. Okay. Because it's on the ground, it means the center point of my sphere has to be 20 millimeters above the ground because it's in contact with it. So what I'll do is I'll come up 20 and I'll just draw a line going straight across. So I know the center point of my sphere, wherever it happens to be, has to be along that line. When you have a sphere and a cylinder touching each other, they're just touching side by side. So what I'll do is I'll temporarily draw a touch on just the right hand side of my cylinder, and I'll just leave it out here for time being. Okay, so it has to be 20 from the side of it, 20 from the ground, okay. So at the minute that sphere is touching the cylinder, and it's also touching the ground. To draw that in plan view, it's directly side by side. It's just going to be in line with my center line. Drop down the center point of it, and the radius obviously doesn't change. It still remains radius 20. So that's the temporary position of it. It's touching both of those things at the same time. Now I'm going to do exactly the same, except this time I'm going to concentrate on the cone and the ground, and I'm going to leave the cylinder out. So I'm going to go do that towards the left hand side of the page. Now again, it has to be touching the ground, so it has to be along this line, my center point that I'm looking for. I'll continue it out towards the left a little bit. If you have a sphere touching the ground and touching the side of a cone, what you do is you bisect the angle, and the center point has to be along your bisecting angle. So we'll bisect that angle. And what we'll find is that our 2 paths will cross over. So my bisecting line and my height of 20 coming across, they're going to cross over. That gives me my center point for my radius 20 sphere. I draw it in. And again, that sphere is touching the ground and is touching the side of my cone. Okay, so it's fulfilling both of those things. Now, the next thing we're going to do in the plan view, you will notice that the sphere overshadows the cone. That's the correct way, because you wouldn't see the bottom of the cone if you're looking straight down when there's a sphere beside it. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to try and get a sphere that's doing all 3 things at the one time. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to concentrate on the cone first, let's say. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to arc that temporary sphere around the cone. So hopefully you would agree that if I drew a radius 20 sphere anywhere along that arc, it will be in contact with the ground and it will be in contact with the cone. Everybody agree with that? Yeah. Right. Now let's do the same thing for the cylinder. Let's bring our temporary sphere on the right hand side, and let's rotate it around my cylinder. And again, anywhere along that arc, I could draw a radius 20 sphere, and it will be in contact with the cylinder and it will be in contact with the ground. What happens is both of those paths cross over each other. So at that exact point, if I use that as my center point for my radius 20 sphere, at that exact point the sphere is in contact with my cone because it's along this arc, and it's in contact with my cylinder because it's along this arc. So it's doing both things at the same time. I know it's touching the ground because if I bring it up, it has to be along this line here. So all that involves is drawing an elevation. Okay, so the one that's in the middle will be your finished sphere in contact with all 2 shapes and the ground.